Owen Halstead woke to find someone crouching in the corner of his bedroom, and his first coherent thought was that his door had definitely been locked. His second thought, occurring roughly half a second later, was that the intruder was shimmering like a heat mirage over summer asphalt, there but not there, and that probably wasn't normal for a home invasion. The shimmer collapsed like a failing hologram, revealing a woman who looked almost human except for the ears that swept back from her skull and the silver blood dripping from a gash across her shoulder. She was breathing hard, her two large eyes reflecting the streetlight coming through his window, and when she spoke her voice was rough with pain. "Please help me, human." The words came out in fractured English, each syllable carefully formed as if she'd learned the language from recordings. "They will kill me if they find me here." Owen's hand had been reaching for his phone on the nightstand, but he froze. She wasn't holding a weapon. She was holding her side, where something had burned through her strange, light-bending suit, leaving wounds that glowed faintly in the darkness of his bedroom. Silver blood, actual silver, pooled on his carpet. "What?" he started, then stopped because there were about 40 questions fighting for priority, and his brain couldn't settle on which one made the most sense. "What are you?" "Dying if you don't help me." She slumped against the wall, and the shimmer around her body flickered like a failing light bulb. "Your governments do not know we are here. If they discover us now, during the war, they will see us as invaders. Both sides will destroy your world to keep it from the other." She met his eyes, and Owen saw desperation there, raw and genuine. "My name is Ryan. I am a deserter." "Please." Owen Halstead taught physics at a high school, where the most exciting thing that usually happened was a student successfully launching a potato in the parking lot. This was so far outside his experience that his brain just sort of gave up on rational processing and went with instinct. "Okay," he heard himself say. "Okay, let me get the first aid kit. Don't bleed on the carpet anymore. My landlord already hates me." Day 3 of hiding an alien woman in his apartment. And Owen was starting to understand why nobody talked about how incredibly mundane parts of first contact would be. Ryan had taken over his bathroom to heal, her wounds closing faster than should be possible, as the silver blood crystallized into scabs that looked like tiny geometric sculptures before falling away. She ate his food carefully, testing each item like it might poison her, and declared peanut butter disturbingly effective as an energy source. "Explain the war again," Owen said, sitting on his couch while she perched on his kitchen counter in clothes he'd bought from the thrift store. The long ears were harder to hide, but a beanie mostly worked. "But slower this time, because I teach teenagers and I'm used to having to repeat myself." Ryan's ears twitched under the hat. "My people are called the Veil. We have been on your world for 60 of your years, watching. We split into 2 factions, shepherds who believe you should be guided, and reapers who believe you should be eliminated before you reach the stars and become a threat." She touched the healing wound on her shoulder. "The war was cold until 3 months ago. Now it is very hot, and it is being fought in places you do not look. Your orbit, your ocean depths, the far side of your moon. And you were a shepherd, a combat medic. I saved lives on both sides because that was my oath. But I could not continue watching my people kill each other over the question of whether your species deserves to exist." She looked at him with those 2 large eyes. "I scanned for isolated humans, and your dwelling was closest when my ship was shot down. It was random chance." "Great, I'm cosmically convenient," Owen muttered, but he smiled to show he was joking. Ryan had started to understand his humor, and her ears perked up slightly in what he'd learned meant amusement. Then his phone rang, the principal, at 8 p.m. on a Wednesday. "Mr. Halstead, this is unusual, but we've had some concerns about an energy signature detected near your building. The district office has contacted." Owen's blood turned cold as he watched a black van park across the street through his window. "Some federal agencies who might want to ask you a few questions. Nothing to worry about, I'm sure." Owen hung up and looked at Ryan, who was already shimmering, trying to bend light around herself despite her injuries. "We have a problem." The men in unmarked suits had equipment that beeped around Owen's building, and he knew with absolute certainty that calling them federal agents was probably generous. They knocked on doors, showed badges that looked official enough, and asked questions about unusual activity. Owen watched from his window as they worked their way up the floors, and beside him Ryan flickered in and out of visibility, her control slipping. If they capture me, both factions will know your species has discovered us, she whispered. The Reapers will use it as justification to begin sterilization. Your world will not survive the debate. Owen looked at the alien woman hiding in his apartment, at the device in her hands that she'd called a data core containing evidence of Reaper atrocities against her own people, and made a decision that was either brave or catastrophically stupid. He grabbed his old camping backpack, stuffed Ryan into it along with a sleeping bag for padding, and walked out his front door just as the agents reached his floor. Evening, he said cheerfully, shouldering the backpack that contained an entire alien person who was holding very, very still. Heard there was some excitement. I run amateur radio experiments, might have been my fault. Got a little carried away with the antenna array on my roof. The lead agent looked at Owen's profile. High school physics teacher, no criminal record, no unusual activity, member of 3 different science education forums and a chess club. Boring, harmless. Exactly the kind of person who might accidentally trigger detection grids with ham radio equipment. We'll need to verify that, Mr. Halstead. Owen spent 2 hours on his roof showing them his radio setup, which did exist, because he actually did run experiments, while Ryan stayed invisible in the backpack at his feet. The agents left with a warning. Owen waited until their van disappeared before letting Ryan out. She emerged gasping. That was extremely uncomfortable. Yeah, well, you're extremely illegal. We're even. Over the next week, they developed routines. Owen went to work, graded papers, acted normal. Ryan studied human culture through his internet connection and asked endless questions about art, war, love, why humans kept small carnivores as pets. One night she asked why he was risking everything for her. Owen thought about it while marking a quiz about momentum. Because someone has to be first. First to try, first to trust. Might as well be the guy who teaches friction coefficients to teenagers. The Reapers came at 3 a.m. with weapons that made no sound, but turned Owen's furniture into crystalline fragments that shattered into dust. Owen woke to find his apartment tearing itself apart at the molecular level, and Ryan, still injured but moving like violence incarnate, engaging 3 attackers in combat that broke the laws of physics he taught. She screamed at him to run as she activated something on her wrist, a beacon that pulsed with desperate light. Owen grabbed it instinctively as a Reaper soldier materialized in front of him, and suddenly he understood. They weren't here for Ryan. They were here for this, for the evidence of their war crimes that could turn their own people against them. He ran, through his destroyed apartment, down the stairs, into his neighborhood, while reality warped around him and Reaper soldiers hunted him through spaces between light and shadow. He ended up on the roof of his school, cornered, the beacon burning in his hands like a star. 3 Reapers materialized around him, weapons raised. Owen closed his eyes and thought about his students, about lesson plans he'd never teach, about an alien woman who trusted a random human to help her. The sky exploded with ships. Dozens of them, shepherd vessels decloaking in Earth's atmosphere, their presence no longer hidden. The Reapers on the roof looked up in shock as they realized they'd been outmaneuvered. Ryan's beacon wasn't calling for rescue. It was revealing their positions to shepherd forces. The firefight lasted 3 minutes and was recorded by every phone camera in the city. First contact happened not as planned but as an accident, forced into the open by one deserter's desperate gamble. A shepherd commander landed on the roof, looked at Owen holding their beacon, looked at Ryan climbing up to stand beside him, wounded but alive, and made a decision. Your species will have questions, she said. We should answer them together. Months later, Owen testified before the UN, while Ryan sat beside him as Earth's first alien cultural liaison. The Reapers had retreated.